I realized I was cheated the moment my wife gave me a train ticket for our honeymoon trip. I never thought I'd be the kind of man who would walk away from his own honeymoon. If you had asked me a year ago, I would have laughed at the idea. Me, the guy who always planned for the future, who believed in love, who thought marriage was about partnership and understanding. But life has a funny way of showing you exactly how wrong you can be. It all started when I met Lena. She wasn't just beautiful, she was the kind of woman who walked into a room and made it feel warmer, brighter, like the air itself had shifted to accommodate her presence. She was confident, ambitious, and had this effortless charm that made people want to be around her. From our very first conversation, I was drawn to her. She had opinions, she had dreams, and she had a laugh that made me forget about everything else. I remember our first date vividly. We met at a cozy little restaurant downtown, one of those places with soft jazz playing in the background and candles on the tables that made everything seem a little more intimate. We talked about everything, our careers, our childhoods, the kind of future we saw for ourselves. She told me she worked in corporate finance, climbing her way up in a competitive firm, and I admired her drive. She admired mine, too. We seemed to fit like two pieces of a puzzle finally finding their place. And then there was her mother, Diane. She came up in conversation often. At first it seemed normal. Most people are close to their parents, right? But with Lena, it was different. She didn't just love her mother, she needed her. Every decision, big or small, had Diane's fingerprints on it. If we planned a weekend trip, she had to check with Diane first. If she wanted to try a new restaurant, she'd ask Diane's opinion. Even the dress she wore on our fourth date, Diane had picked it out. It didn't alarm me at first. I thought, okay, they're close. Nothing wrong with that. My own mother had passed years ago, so maybe I just wasn't used to seeing that kind of bond. I told myself it was sweet, that it showed Lena was family-oriented. I didn't realize I was making excuses for something much, much deeper. The first real red flag came when I planned a surprise weekend getaway for Lena's birthday. It was supposed to be just the two of us, a quiet cabin by the lake, complete with wine, a fireplace, and no distractions. But when I gave her the tickets, she hesitated. "Wow, this looks amazing," she said, but her voice didn't match her words. I should check with Mom first." I laughed, thinking she was joking. "Check with her? Lena, you're not asking for permission, right?" She gave me a small smile, but she was already reaching for her phone. "She just likes to know where I am." I watched her type out a message, my stomach sinking in a way I couldn't quite explain. She wasn't just telling her mother about the trip, she was waiting for approval. Sure enough, a few minutes later she frowned at her screen. "Maybe we could go another time," she suggested. Mom was really hoping we'd have dinner with her this weekend. I should have seen it then. I should have understood what that meant. But love makes you ignore things you shouldn't. It makes you explain away behavior that, in any other context, would set off alarms. So instead of pressing the issue, I smiled and said, "Okay, next time." Next time never came. Months passed, and Lena and I continued to build a life together, or at least, that's what I told myself. I loved her, and despite the constant presence of Diane in our relationship, I believed we were strong enough to handle anything. Every couple has their challenges, right? And sure, Lena's mother was involved, but that didn't mean she controlled Lena. Or so I thought. Looking back, I realize I spent a lot of time making excuses. I told myself Diane was just being protective, that Lena was used to being close to her mother, and that adjusting to a marriage dynamic would take time. I convinced myself that I was worrying over nothing. Then the wedding planning began. Diane wasn't just involved, she took over. The guest list, the venue, the food, the music, every detail was micromanaged by her. I was an afterthought in my own wedding. There were moments when I felt like I was marrying into a pre-existing union, like Diane and Lena were the real couple, and I was just there to fill a role. One night, after yet another argument about something Diane insisted on changing, I asked Lena directly, "Do you even want to get married?" My frustration bled into my tone. She looked at me like I had insulted her. "Of course I do. What kind of question is that? Then why does it feel like I have to ask for permission to be in this relationship?" She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "It's just, my mom has been there for me my whole life. I can't just ignore her opinions." "No one's asking you to ignore her," I said. "I'm asking you to put us first." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stared at the floor, thinking, considering. Then finally she whispered, "I don't know if I can." That was when I should have walked away. That was when I should have understood that this wasn't a we, it was always going to be them. But love makes fools of us all. I stayed. And staying led me to that moment, standing in front of Lena on our honeymoon departure day, staring at the train ticket she handed me like it was nothing, like it was fair, like it was perfectly reasonable that she and Diane would fly in comfort while I was left to trail behind them alone. And in that moment, something in me snapped. I looked at her, at the woman I had given my heart to, and I saw the truth. I would never come first. I would always be the outsider in my own marriage. So I smiled, took my suitcase, and said the words I knew she would never forget. "You will regret this." And then, for the first time since I met Lena, I did something I should have done a long time ago. I walked away. If there was a single moment where I should have seen it all coming, it was the wedding. Looking back, I wonder how I let it get so far. Maybe I was blinded by love, or maybe I just didn't want to admit what was happening. Either way, the signs were all there, clear as day. At first, I was excited. Weddings are supposed to be about two people coming together, celebrating their love, making a promise to build a future. But from the moment Lena and I got engaged, it became painfully obvious that this wedding wasn't going to be about us. It was going to be about Diane. It started with the venue. Lena and I had discussed a small, intimate wedding, nothing too extravagant, just close friends and family, something meaningful. We even found the perfect spot, a beautiful garden overlooking a lake, simple and elegant. Then Diane heard about it. "That won't do at all," she said, waving off our idea like it was a bad meal she was sending back to the kitchen. "Lena deserves something grand, a ballroom, chandeliers, the works." I laughed, thinking she was joking. "We don't really want a huge wedding," I told her. "Something small feels more personal." She gave me this condescending smile, the kind that made my skin crawl. "Oh, sweetheart, you'll see. Weddings aren't about what the couple wants. They're about family." No, they're really not. They're about the two people getting married. But in Diane's world, everything revolved around her. Lena didn't push back. She never did. She just nodded and said, "Mom does have a point." And just like that, our wedding was no longer ours. The guest list doubled, then tripled. Half the people on it were Diane's friends, people I had never even met. When I asked Lena why we needed so many strangers at our wedding, she shrugged. "Mom says they're important. The food, chosen by Diane. The music? Diane vetoed our DJ in favor of a live band, one of her old favorites from the 80s. The flowers? Diane's decision. The cake? Diane said vanilla was too boring and ordered some elaborate 4-tier monstrosity without even consulting us. At one point, I pulled Lena aside, trying to get her to see what was happening. "Lena, this isn't our wedding anymore," I told her. "It's your mom's." She sighed, already exhausted. "It's just easier this way," she said. "You know how she gets." Yeah, I did. But that wasn't the point. The real breaking point came when Diane inserted herself into the wedding party. Traditionally, the groom stands at the altar with his groomsmen, waiting for the bride. It's a quiet, nerve-wracking, beautiful moment. I imagine standing there, hands clasped, heart racing, watching Lena walk toward me. Diane had other ideas. 2 weeks before the wedding, she made an announcement, not a suggestion, an announcement. "I'll be walking Lena down the aisle," she said. I nearly choked on my drink. "What?" She nodded, completely serious. I raised her. I deserved to be the one to give her away. I turned to Lena, expecting her to say something, anything, to stop this madness. She hesitated, then nodded. "I think it would mean a lot to her," she said softly. I stared at her, waiting for the part where she told me she was joking. But she wasn't. She actually thought this was okay. I had to leave the room before I said something I'd regret. The wedding day arrived, and from the moment I woke up, I felt like a guest at someone else's event. I stood at the altar, watching as Lena walked toward me, not with her father, not with a sibling, not alone like a woman making her own choices, but with Diane clutching her arm like she was the one getting married. It was a show, a performance, a Diane production starring her, with Lena as a supporting character. I should have left right then, but I didn't. I told myself I loved Lena. I told myself we'd figure things out. I told myself it was just one day, that the real marriage would be different. I was a fool. The reception wasn't any better. Diane had inserted herself at the head table, right next to Lena, not sitting with the other parents, not mingling with guests, but right next to the bride, as if she were the second half of the couple. Then came the speeches. My best man gave a heartfelt toast about friendship, about how he'd watched me grow into the man I was today. It was short, funny, touching, the kind of speech you remember. Then Diane took the mic. She didn't toast us as a couple. She didn't welcome me into the family. No, she spent 10 minutes talking about Lena's childhood, how she raised her alone, how they had been through everything together, how they were inseparable. My name was mentioned once, barely. "To my daughter, my best friend, my soulmate," she finished, raising her glass. "May you always be as happy as we've been together." I drained my champagne in one gulp. I remember sitting there, forcing a smile, feeling like a complete idiot. Lena had chosen her side, and it wasn't mine. I kept up appearances. I smiled for pictures. I kissed my bride. I played my part. But deep down, I knew this wasn't going to work. By the time we got to our honeymoon departure, I was already half out the door. I just didn't know it yet. Marriage is supposed to be a partnership, two people choosing to build a life together, navigating the highs and lows as a team. I walked into my marriage with Lena believing that, foolishly thinking once the wedding chaos settled, we could finally focus on each other. I thought we'd get a chance to be newlyweds, to find our rhythm, to exist without Diane looming over us like a shadow. I was wrong. The morning after our wedding, I woke up alone. At first, I thought Lena had gone to make coffee or take a shower, but when I checked my phone, I saw a text from her. Mom wanted to have breakfast together. Be back soon. Love you. I blinked at the screen. Breakfast? On the first morning of our marriage? I waited. An hour passed, then 2. When she finally walked back into the hotel room, she was all smiles, holding a takeout bag. I brought you a croissant, she said cheerfully, as if that erased the fact that she had chosen to start her first day as my wife with Diane instead of me. I didn't say anything at the time. I just nodded, took the croissant, and told myself it was a one-time thing. It wasn't. Lena and I never really had a honeymoon phase because we were never alone. Diane was always there, physically, emotionally, in every conversation, every decision. It wasn't that she was overbearing in the typical overprotective mother way. It was worse than that. She acted like she and Lena were still a package deal, as if Lena's marriage didn't change a single thing about their relationship. We moved into our new apartment, my apartment, which I had owned for years before meeting Lena. The first night, as we were unpacking, Lena's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, then at me. "It's Mom," she said, biting her lip. I exhaled. "You don't have to answer. We just spent all day moving. She can call tomorrow." She hesitated for exactly 3 seconds before picking up the call anyway. "Hey, Mom. Yeah, we just finished moving in." "Oh, I miss you too." "What?" "No, I can't come over tonight, but maybe." "Oh yeah, I guess I could swing by tomorrow morning." I stared at her as she agreed to go have breakfast with Diane again. "Lena," I said as soon as she hung up, "we just moved in. Don't you think we should spend some time together?" She sighed, sitting down on the edge of the bed. "I just don't want her to feel abandoned." "She's not abandoned," I said, struggling to keep my frustration in check. "You just got married. It's normal for things to change a little." She looked at me like I had suggested we cut off Diane completely. "She's been my best friend my whole life. I can't just ignore her now." "Who's asking you to ignore her?" I shot back. "I'm asking you to put us first for once." She frowned. "That's not fair." Fair. That word felt like a slap. Was it fair that we had barely spent a full day alone as husband and wife? Was it fair that Diane called constantly, that Lena dropped everything to answer? Was it fair that whenever I tried to express how this made me feel, I was painted as the unreasonable one? This became the pattern of our marriage. Mornings were interrupted by phone calls. Plans were changed because of Diane's needs. Anytime Lena and I wanted to make a decision, what furniture to buy, what restaurant to try, she had to check with her mother first. It didn't take long before Diane stopped even pretending to be subtle. One Saturday morning, Lena and I were supposed to go on a day trip to the mountains. I had planned everything: hiking, a nice lunch at a small cafe, some much-needed time away from the city. Then Diane called. "I need Lena to help me organize my closet," she said over the speakerphone. Lena glanced at me guiltily. "Mom, we were supposed to go hiking today." "Sweetheart, it won't take long. Plus, my arthritis has been acting up and I really shouldn't be lifting anything heavy." Lena turned to me, eyes pleading. "I'll just be an hour, I promise." I clenched my jaw. Fine. An hour turned into 3, then 5. By the time she got home, the sun had set, and our entire day was wasted. She tried to smile at me. Mom and I ended up reorganizing more than just the closet. We did the whole bedroom. It was actually kind of fun. I didn't answer. I just nodded, walked into the bedroom, and shut the door. I started to realize something. Lena didn't think anything was wrong. To her, this was normal, expected. She wasn't struggling to balance her marriage and her mother, because, in her mind, there was no balance to find. Diane came first, always. One evening, after yet another canceled date night because Diane just needed a little help, I tried again. "Lena, we can't keep living like this," I said as gently as I could. "I need us to set some boundaries." She crossed her arms. "Why does it bother you so much that I'm close to my mom?" I ran a hand down my face, exhaling slowly. "Because she's in our marriage, Lena, every single day, and it's pushing me out." "That's not true," she said defensively. "You're overreacting." I stared at her, feeling something break inside me. Overreacting? That was when I realized I wasn't going to win. This wasn't something Lena saw as a problem, and if she didn't see it as a problem, she was never going to fix it. The resentment grew like a slow-burning fire. I stopped fighting for time with my wife because I was tired of losing. I stopped arguing about the phone calls because I knew she'd answer them anyway. I stopped hoping things would change. And then came the moment that changed everything. The moment Lena handed me that train ticket on our honeymoon departure day. That was the moment I knew for certain I wasn't a husband. I was just an extra in their story. I should have seen it coming. The signs had been there from the beginning. Diane's control, Lena's blind loyalty, the way every decision in our marriage had to be approved by her mother first. But despite everything, I still held on to this foolish hope that our honeymoon would be different, that it would be ours. That was my mistake. I had been counting down the days, convincing myself that this trip would be the turning point, a fresh start. 2 weeks away from Diane, away from the constant phone calls, away from the suffocating influence of a woman who had turned my wife into an extension of herself. Lena and I had agreed on a beautiful tropical destination, a place where we could unwind, enjoy each other's company, and finally have the time we never seemed to get at home. I imagined lazy mornings by the beach, candlelit dinners, uninterrupted conversations, just us, as it should have been. Then, the night before we were supposed to leave, Lena dropped a bombshell. We were packing our bags in the bedroom when she hesitated, her fingers gripping the zipper of her suitcase a little too tightly. "Hey," she said casually, too casually. "So my company only gave me 2 business class tickets for the flight." I looked up from my suitcase, expecting her to finish the sentence with something reasonable, something like, "So I bought a 3rd ticket for you." Instead, she cleared her throat and continued, "I figured Mom would use the 2nd one, and you could take the train and meet us there." I froze. At first, I thought I had misheard her. Maybe my brain refused to process what she had just said because it was too absurd, too insulting to even be real. "I'm sorry, what?" I asked, my voice unnervingly calm. Lena gave me a small, apologetic smile, the kind she used whenever she wanted to soften a blow. "It's not a big deal. The train ride is comfortable, and it's only a few hours longer than the flight. Plus, it's way cheaper than buying an extra business class ticket." I stared at her, waiting for the moment when she would realize how insane this sounded. She didn't. "You're telling me," I said slowly, "that on our honeymoon, Lena, you and your mother are flying in business class while I take a train like some afterthought?" She sighed, clearly irritated that I wasn't just going along with this. "It's not like that." "Oh, then what is it like?" She rolled her eyes. "You're overreacting. It's just a few hours apart. We'll all meet at the resort and everything will be fine." We all. That was it. That was the moment everything inside me just snapped. I wasn't even angry, not at first. It was something colder than anger, something heavier, a realization. I had been holding on to an illusion, to a marriage that wasn't really a marriage. Lena wasn't my wife. She was Diane's daughter first, always. Every fight, every compromise I had made, every time I swallowed my frustration thinking things would get better, it had all been a waste. I exhaled slowly, gripping the handle of my suitcase. "You will regret this," I said, my voice steady. Lena's expression faltered. "What does that mean?" I didn't answer. Instead, I zipped up my bag, pulled it off the bed, and walked past her. "Where are you going?" she called after me, finally sounding concerned. I paused at the door, looking over my shoulder, somewhere I'm actually wanted. And then I left. By the time I got downstairs and stepped outside, the evening air felt crisper than usual. It was like stepping into a different reality, one where I wasn't suffocating under the weight of someone else's expectations. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know where I was going. But I knew one thing: I wasn't going to that honeymoon. As I walked down the sidewalk, my phone started buzzing in my pocket. I didn't even need to check the screen to know who it was. I ignored the first call, then the second. By the third, I finally pulled my phone out and saw Lena's name flashing across the screen. I let it ring. She left a voicemail, her voice tight with frustration. "This is ridiculous, okay? I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of this. Just call me back, and let's figure this out." Figure what out? She had already made her choice, and now so had I. I found a hotel, checked in, and sat on the bed in silence for a long time. There was no anger, no heartbreak, just clarity. I wasn't the problem. I had spent so much time wondering if I was being unfair, if I was expecting too much, if I was the one who needed to compromise more. But no, this was never a real marriage. This was me being slotted into Diane's world, expected to play my part without complaint. I wasn't doing it anymore. Then, just as I was about to put my phone on silent, another call came in. Not Lena. Diane. I laughed. Actually laughed. Of course. I let it go to voicemail. This time she didn't sound frustrated, she sounded furious. "You have some nerve," Diane snapped. "Do you have any idea how embarrassed Lena is? You're acting like a child. Get over yourself and come to the airport before you ruin this whole trip. I deleted the voicemail. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. The next morning, as I was checking out of the hotel, my phone buzzed again. Lena. I considered ignoring it, but something told me to answer. Before I could even say hello, her voice came through, panicked. I don't know what to do, she stammered. They overbooked the flight, and Mom's throwing a fit at the gate. She's causing a scene, yelling at the attendants. People are staring, it's bad, they might not even let us board. I waited, letting the silence stretch. Can you come? She finally asked, her voice small. I smiled, not because I was happy about her distress, but because this was the moment she finally understood, the moment she realized she needed me. But the thing was, I didn't need her. I inhaled deeply, exhaled slowly, and said the only thing left to say, no, Lena. You can figure this out without me. And then I hung up. The best part about freedom is how light it makes you feel. The worst part? How much you realize you were carrying before you finally dropped the weight. The morning after I walked out, I woke up in a hotel room that wasn't mine, in a bed that didn't hold any memories of Lena. No scent of her perfume on the pillow, no sound of her voice in the background, no buzzing phone calls from Diane. Just silence. And God, did it feel good. I took my time getting ready, not checking my phone once. I didn't care what Lena had to say. Not last night and certainly not this morning. I knew exactly how things had gone down at the airport. Diane had probably thrown a fit when their flight got delayed or overbooked, barking at the airline staff like she was some kind of royalty, while Lena stood beside her, uncomfortable but too spineless to say anything. That was their problem, not mine. I showered, got dressed, and grabbed my suitcase, ready to head out and figure out where I wanted to spend my sudden, unexpected solo vacation. But the moment I reached for my phone, curiosity got the best of me. Missed calls, 8. Voicemails, 4. Text messages, 13. I smirked. That was fast. The first voicemail was from Lena. Babe, please, can we just talk? I know you're upset, but you just left. I wasn't expecting that. I thought you'd at least come to the airport and we could figure things out. Call me, okay? That was the nice one. The second voicemail, less nice. I don't understand why you're making such a big deal out of this. It was just a travel arrangement. It wasn't like I was abandoning you. You were still coming on the honeymoon. I rolled my eyes. If she really believed that, she was dumber than I thought. Then came the third message, and this one was golden. I don't know what to do, she stammered. They overbooked the flight, and Mom's throwing a fit at the gate. She's causing a scene, yelling at the attendants. People are staring, it's bad. They might not even let us board. I almost laughed. I could picture it perfectly. Diane standing there, arms crossed, voice raised, demanding to speak to someone in charge, probably throwing around words like unacceptable and compensation, while Lena tried to keep her from fully combusting. And they wanted me there to do what, exactly? The last voicemail was Lena's breaking point. Please, just come to the airport, she said, her voice cracking. I don't want to deal with this alone. I need you. I let out a slow breath. There it was. For the first time, she actually needed me, not Diane, me. But the thing was, it was already too late. I scrolled through the text messages. The first few were her trying to explain herself, then came the "why are you ignoring me" texts, then the "we need to talk" ones. But my personal favorite was the one she sent just 20 minutes ago. Lena, I don't know where you are, but this is not okay. You're my husband. You can't just walk away like this. I stared at the message for a long time, then typed out a response. Me, you handed me a train ticket while you and your mom flew first class. I can, in fact, walk away. I didn't wait for her reply. I grabbed my suitcase, checked out of the hotel, and walked out into the world a free man. Meanwhile, at the airport, Lena was unraveling. She sat hunched over in the airport lounge, gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her heart was pounding in her ears, and she could still hear the echoes of her mother's voice as she yelled at the airline staff. They had been denied boarding, not because of an overbooked flight, but because Diane had made such a scene that the airline refused to let them on. And now, here she was, sitting in an airport with her mother while her husband was gone. She checked her phone again. No response. He had read her last message. He had typed something back. And when she saw it, you handed me a train ticket while you and your mom flew first class. I can, in fact, walk away. Her stomach dropped. He wasn't just upset. He was done. Where is he? Diane's voice cut through her panic. Lena looked up. Her mother was fuming, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. He's not coming, Lena said, her voice hollow. Diane scoffed. Well, then he's just being dramatic. I told you from the beginning he was too sensitive. A real man wouldn't just run off like that." Lena flinched. For the first time, her mother's words didn't comfort her. They didn't feel like an excuse she could cling to. Because deep down she knew the truth, she had pushed him away. She had ignored every sign, every warning, every moment when he had tried to tell her that things weren't okay. And now, when she actually needed him, when she was sitting in an airport, stranded, humiliated, and exhausted, he was nowhere to be found. And maybe he wasn't coming back. Diane sighed dramatically. "Well, come on, sweetheart. We'll just book another flight. Forget him. We don't need him ruining our trip." Lena's throat tightened. A week ago, she might have agreed. She might have followed her mother's lead, reassured herself that her husband was just throwing a tantrum and that everything would go back to normal. But now she wasn't so sure. She looked down at her phone again, stared at his message, and for the first time in her life she realized she had truly lost something. The thing about walking away is that it doesn't hit you all at once. The relief, the clarity, it comes in waves. The first wave hit me the second I walked out of our apartment with my suitcase, leaving Lena standing there holding a train ticket like it was some kind of joke. The second wave came when I checked into my hotel that night, stretched out on a bed that didn't smell like her perfume and didn't hear Diane's voice in the background of a phone call she never let go unanswered. And now the third wave was here. I was in a cab on my way to the airport, but not to follow them. I had booked my own trip, somewhere far, somewhere quiet, somewhere they wouldn't be. I wasn't the type of man to throw around ultimatums. I didn't make dramatic exits, and I didn't believe in petty revenge. But when Lena handed me that train ticket and expected me to just go along with it, something inside me shifted. That was the moment I realized I had been playing the wrong role in my own marriage. I wasn't a husband. I was an extra in the real love story, Lena and Diane, and I was done being part of a story where I wasn't even the main character. At the airport, I sat in the terminal, sipping coffee and waiting for my flight to board. It was strange, really, how calm I felt. There was no anger, no bitterness, just a quiet understanding that I had made the right decision. And then my phone rang. Lena. I let it ring. Then came a text. "Lena, where are you?" I smirked. For years, I had let her dictate my every move. She had scheduled our lives around her mother, her needs, her comfort. Not anymore. I typed back, "Me, moving on." The dots popped up, showing she was typing. "Lena, babe, please, we need to talk." "Me, we should have talked before you handed me that train ticket." Her reply came fast. "Lena, I wasn't trying to hurt you. It was just a mistake." Mistake? I leaned back in my chair, rolling the word around in my mind. That was the thing about mistakes, they happened by accident. This was a choice. She chose to put her mother first. She chose to dismiss my feelings. She chose to let Diane control our marriage. She chose. And now, I was choosing too. I typed one final message, "Me, enjoy your honeymoon with your mother. I'll enjoy my trip alone." Then I blocked her number. I let out a slow breath, setting my phone down beside my coffee cup. It was over. Meanwhile, back at her own gate, Lena gripped her phone so tightly her hands shook. Blocked. He had actually blocked her. Diane sat beside her, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened, like this was just another day, like Lena's marriage wasn't falling apart in real time. Lena swallowed hard. "He's not answering," she said. Diane scoffed. "Good, let him sulk. He'll come crawling back once he realizes how ridiculous he's being." Lena wasn't so sure. She had never seen him this way before, so calm, so certain. He hadn't shouted, hadn't begged, hadn't even fought for her. He had just left. Like he had been ready to walk away for a long time. A lump formed in her throat. "Mom, what if he doesn't come back?" Diane sighed dramatically. "Oh, please, sweetheart. Men don't leave good wives. He's just being emotional. Let him go on his little solo vacation. He'll get over it." Would he? Lena thought about their wedding, about how distant he had seemed when Diane had taken over. She thought about the countless times he had asked her to set boundaries with her mother. About the times she had ignored his frustration, dismissed his concerns. What if she had pushed him too far? What if this time he really wasn't coming back? Her stomach twisted. She had always assumed he would stay. But what if she had been wrong? As my plane took off, I closed my eyes and let out a slow breath. This was the first time in years that I was doing something for myself. No compromises, no explanations. No Diane hovering over my shoulder like a ghost that refused to be exorcised. For so long I had been bending, adjusting, shrinking myself to fit into Lena's world. But that was over. I looked out the window as the clouds rolled past, my mind already focused on the future. This wasn't the end, it was a new beginning. And for the first time in a long, long time, I was finally free. The thing about regret is that it doesn't hit you all at once. It sneaks up on you in quiet moments, in the spaces where you least expect it. And for Lena, that moment came the day she returned home alone. The trip had been a disaster. After their flight had been delayed, thanks to Diane's tantrum, Lena and her mother had finally made it to the resort. But it wasn't the honeymoon she had envisioned. Instead of romantic dinners and long walks on the beach, she spent every moment with Diane, sitting in silence, picking at her food, staring at the empty seat across from her that should have belonged to her husband. But he wasn't there, because she had pushed him away. And now, as she dragged her suitcase through the front door of their apartment, the place felt different. It wasn't just empty, it was hollow, stripped of something vital. She dropped her bags by the door and called out instinctively, "I'm home!" Silence. Her chest tightened. She had spent years assuming he would always be there, that no matter how many times she put her mother first, he would wait, that he would understand. But now, looking around the apartment, reality set in. Something felt off. She walked into the bedroom and froze. His side of the closet, empty. His drawers cleared out, the books on his nightstand gone. Panic surged through her as she rushed through the apartment, checking every room, opening every cabinet, as if she would find some sign that he was still here, that he hadn't actually left. But he had. He had really left. Her legs gave out and she sank onto the bed, gripping her phone with shaky hands. She dialed his number. The call didn't even ring, blocked. Her breath hitched, and a sob clawed its way up her throat. When Diane arrived later that evening, she barely batted an eye at the situation. "Sweetheart, stop crying. It's not the end of the world." Lena lifted her tear-streaked face, her voice raw. "He left me." Diane sighed, shaking her head. "He's being dramatic. He'll come crawling back once he realizes how lucky he was to have you." Lena swallowed hard. What if he didn't? She had believed for so long that her mother was always right, that Diane knew best. But now she wasn't so sure. Her husband had warned her. He had told her over and over that this wasn't sustainable, that he needed her to choose him sometimes, that he needed to feel like he was a priority, and every single time she had ignored him. Now she was paying the price. Diane waved a dismissive hand. "Give it time. He'll cool off, and then you can talk some sense into him." But Lena wasn't so sure anymore. Her mother had never been wrong before, at least, not in Lena's mind. Diane had always told her that men were replaceable, that the only relationship that truly mattered was the one between them. And for so long, Lena had believed that. But now she was beginning to see the truth. Her mother had never had a successful relationship. Her mother had never been married. Her mother had never been in love. So why had she let Diane control hers? A cold realization settled in Lena's chest. She had been so afraid of disappointing her mother that she had lost the only person who truly loved her, and there was no guarantee he was coming back. The next morning, Lena sat at the kitchen table, staring at her phone, debating whether to call from another number. Would he pick up? Would he even listen? She took a deep breath and texted his best friend instead. "Lena, I know he doesn't want to hear from me, but please, can you just tell me if he's okay?" A few minutes later, she got a reply. "Best friend, he's better than he's been in years." The words hit her harder than she expected. She had assumed he was heartbroken, that he was suffering just like she was. But he wasn't. He was happy because she was no longer in his life. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She had convinced herself that he needed her, that he would always stay no matter how much she took him for granted. But she had been wrong, and now she was alone. Over the next few weeks, the silence in the apartment became unbearable. Every morning she woke up reaching for him, only to remember he was gone. She didn't delete his contact, she couldn't. She reread their old messages, stared at their wedding photos, tried to remember the last time she had truly made him feel loved. And she couldn't, because it had always been about Diane. One afternoon she picked up the phone and called her mother. "I miss him," she admitted. "I think I really messed up." Diane sighed. "Lena, enough with this nonsense. You're better off without him." A long pause. And then, for the first time in her life, Lena asked the question she had never dared ask before. "Mom, have you ever been in love?" The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Then finally, Diane's voice came through, clipped, irritated. "Love makes people weak. You don't need it." And in that moment, Lena finally saw her mother for who she really was, a woman who had never known love, a woman who had never truly been happy, a woman who had made sure her daughter followed in her footsteps. Lena had listened to her mother, she had trusted her, and now she was paying the price. Because her husband was gone, and deep down, she knew he wasn't coming back. There's something surreal about watching your life fall apart and realizing you don't miss it, not even a little. I should have been heartbroken. That's what everyone expects after a failed marriage, right? To grieve, to doubt, to wonder if you made the right choice. But instead, I woke up every morning feeling lighter. No more walking on eggshells. No more competing with Diane for Lena's attention. No more feeling like a guest in my own life. For the first time in years, I was free. The first thing I did after returning from my trip was get my own place. Not an apartment filled with memories of Lena. Not a space that held echoes of arguments and resentment. I wanted something new, something untouched by the past. I found a loft in the city, nothing too extravagant but mine. The moment I signed the lease, I felt like I was reclaiming a piece of myself I hadn't even realized I'd lost. Decorating it was oddly therapeutic. No compromises, no second opinions, no "let me check with my mom" nonsense. Just me, making choices for myself. And damn, did it feel good. Of course, Lena didn't let go easily. The first time she tried to reach me after I blocked her, she used a different number. I answered without thinking, only to hear her breath hitch on the other end of the line. "Hey," she said softly, like we hadn't just torn each other's lives apart. I didn't respond. She sighed. I know you hate me right now." I still didn't speak. "I miss you," she finally whispered. "Can we talk?" For a moment, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Then I remembered standing at the airport, reading her message, realizing she had never chosen me. So I said the only thing left to say, "No." And I hung up. Instead of wallowing, I threw myself into work. Being a husband to Lena had felt like a full-time job. Now that I was free, I had all this extra time, and I used it to build myself up. I took on new projects, networked with people I had lost touch with, started focusing on my health again. It didn't take long for people to notice the change. "You seem lighter," one of my colleagues remarked one day over lunch. I laughed, taking a sip of my coffee. I am, because I was. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying someone else's baggage. The universe has a twisted sense of humor, because a few months later, I ran into Lena. I was at a cafe, working on some reports, when I heard a familiar voice say my name. I looked up and there she was. She looked different, not in an obvious way, but in the way people do when they've been through something they didn't think they'd survive. She hesitated before sitting across from me, clutching her coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping her together. I waited. Finally, she spoke. I just wanted to see you." I leaned back in my chair, watching her. She swallowed hard. "And I wanted to say I'm sorry." I didn't say anything. "I get it now," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't back then, but I do now. I pushed you away. I let my mom control everything, and she exhaled shakily. "I lost you because of it." I stared at her for a long moment. This was the apology I had once desperately wanted, but now it didn't mean anything. "I'm glad you understand," I said simply. She blinked, clearly expecting more. "That's it?" I shrugged. "What else is there?" A flash of something crossed her face, regret maybe. "Do you think," she hesitated, "do you think we could ever try again?" I smiled. Not out of malice, not out of smugness, but because I'd never been so sure of something in my life. "No, Lena." Her breath hitched. "You had me," I told her, "and you lost me." She stared at her coffee, nodding slowly. "I deserve that." I didn't say anything, because she did. A few days after that encounter, I got a message from a mutual friend. "Friend, just thought you should know. Lena's still living with her mom. Or if anything, they seem even closer now." I read the message, waiting for some kind of emotion to hit me. Regret, sadness, pity, nothing. I typed out a quick reply. That's not my problem anymore. And it wasn't. Because while Lena was still trapped in Diane's world, I had built one of my own. And for the first time in a long, long time, I was truly finally happy.